From Craig Rolson in Europe, David Gerber in Brazil, and our editor-in-chief and publisher, Don Oshman, it's time for this week's Sunday Night Week in Review.
Good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night, February 15th edition of the HideNet Weekly Market Report. My name is Don Oshman, editor-in-chief and publisher of HideNet Market Reports and HideNet Forums, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. In Europe this week, our editor Craig Rolson writes that the hide prices have firmed. It's more stable, it's on a more even keel, and maybe a little underlying strength. And this is due in good part to Chinese tanners taking in some European hides which they can get shipped because they can't get shipments of American hides due to the West Coast port strike, where most of the hides go to the Far East. In fact, about all the hides go to the Far East. Well, some go through Texas, but most of them come from the West Coast ports, and delays are 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, but we'll talk about that in a minute. He has a report on the Paris Vision Show, the old Semaine de Cuir. It wasn't a great show, but those who attended said they are cautiously optimistic. Next week, it's showtime in the European continent. MyCam, MyPal at Milan next week. We'll have a report on that in our next edition and in our weekly European reports. Chinese activity, as noted, has been good, relatively good, which puts some strength under the UK Irish cow market for one. Although the steer market has not been terrific because the automotive seems to have enough coverage, but that's a general term. Some do, some need, so the market's not in trouble. European veal-skin market's under some duress, and the big news was that JBS from South America, from Brazil, bought an Italian tannery called Consiglio Pirante, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. My Italian is lacking because it's almost zero, like grazie. In the United States this week, prices were steady, but volume was incredibly slow. Part of that is due to the Chinese New Year, where some of the smaller players went out last week on holidays and will be out for 3-4 weeks. The bigger tanners shut down in China, will shut down over this weekend. We'll come back in about a week, but typically they'll be gone 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And Korea is just out a few days, but Taiwan will be gone. And Thailand, Vietnam, it varies. But the bottom line is if the market were really good, the holidays would not deter buying. And this last week, it was just really slow. We think it's because the volume of leather orders, which should be being placed around this time of year for fall shipment, are subpar. If somebody bought 1 million square feet last year a month from somebody, they only bought 800,000 or 700,000 because leather, to varying degrees, which we keep writing about in our reports, has been supplanted by synthetics because of price. But that's a whole discussion for another time. The big news out of America, or out of HideNet this week, is that Tuesday, February 17th, HideNet will put on another forum. On this particular forum, we have Mike Larson, who is responsible for Vice President of Sales of Tyson, and Tyson makes more wet salted hides in America and more blue hides in America than anyone else. So Mike is going to talk about the market, supply, and all that sort of thing in our forum, one of 3 panelists. The second one is David Peters, who has worked just about everybody in the hide business from tanneries. He set up the wet bluing operation that used to be in Montfort in Greeley, Colorado. He was a buyer for GST, one of the major automotive tanners of the world. He was working in the wet blue department at Twin City, another very big big wet blue producer. He's been in the hide trading business. He's done about everything. So we're happy to have David Peters with us. And also another veteran who's been a master of his trade is Andy Seward, who forever was the procurement leather manager for Clark's International Footwear, with this leather company. Andy has left that position recently, relatively recently, is now as an independent consultant. So Andy can tell us a lot of information about that as well. So recommend that you sign up to register for this. Where, how? You can go to the HideNet LinkedIn site, you can go to the HideNet Twitter, or you can simply send an email to me, HideNet@forum.com. Don at forum.com. Send that to me. I will get that email and I will set you up for registration so you can watch this video. It's going to be live at about 5 or 6 p.m. on Tuesday European time, 10 a.m. Pacific Coast time in America. And it's interactive. So when one of these 3 panelists say something that you want to ask about or ask about anything to these three experts, you can type on your computer and it will show up and everybody can see it and we can answer it. So it's totally international, totally interactive. We hope you'll join us. A big thing in the American report this week was this West Coast port update. It stretched finances of people. There's hydrogen storage. There are many containers sitting on the West Coast ports, and it's a big conundrum, and people aren't sure whether how many hides were really shipped. Did they make it on board a vessel to go to the Far East? How many was said sold? They've got to be resold because the letter of credit's expired. All that's detailed in this week's U.S. Week in Review. Also, we talked about 2014 U.S. industry, where sales set a record this week. Of course, sales set a record this week because the dollar amounts were so high. I don't know if the unit sales for 2014 were probably lower because we produced about 7% fewer hides. Also in the U.S., combined sales exports were recorded as 527,000. Combined shipments were up 3%. Combined outstanding, and this is a nebulous figure now, because we don't know what's classified as it was shipped. Did it get on board a vessel? Did a letter of credit apply? Does it have to be resold? That's at a 16-month high again this week. Again, the West Coast port situation is very, very stressful for the whole industry. And not just us. Shoes that were supposed to come in for the spring season aren't coming in enough. Widgets and gadgets. The whole, maybe 20-30% of what goes in and out of America through the West Coast port is in limbo. In Latin America, David Hull's report will be here tomorrow. Carnival started down in that part of the world. People took a long weekend. It's summer holidays, so we won't have that report till tomorrow. But in conversations with David the other day, he said huge drought throughout most of Brazil has caused big water shortages, and as a result, to reduce consumption, the Brazilian government has increased electricity costs by 66% for everybody, industry, personal. So if a man has a tannery, he has to run his drums, for example, run his equipment, or any business, he's got to pay 66% more just in electricity costs. Then the problems with the real. Fresh Brazilian hides haven't gone down, but tanners say they can't afford to sell at $1.70 or $1.60 a foot, which the market wants to buy at because their fresh costs are so high, and now their production costs are even higher because of this electricity, if for no other reason. Also, David reported that Brazilian finished leather prices are so high now, given the 5% import duty for Brazilian product into Europe, okay, and the increased cost in the raw material and in the production, that Brazilian finished leather is no longer marketable at the price level in the EU. Again, the currency, the EU, the real. So that's what's going on now. One tanner, he told a story of one tanner who shut down a new, huge finishing plant because he can't compete in the finished leather market, is now selling wet blue. That's what's going on now. We've been on for too long tonight. I want to thank you for your patience in watching. We'll look forward to seeing you Tuesday, February 17th. I'll be the moderator. See David Peters, Andy Seward, and Mike Larson. And I think you'll find it a terrific hour-long forum. And we'd love to see you send in any questions that you might have for our panel. Again, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye.